Okay, so we're here at the assignment number 2. So after reading the assignment and watching the necessary information, I'm here through the 6th video in this playlist and then also this tutorial that you're watching now. You want to go back to the assignment and then click here on this link to retrieve the PDF that you'll be copying effectively. So I'm just going to download this. I'm going to keep it. It's the Healing Garden survey. Once I've done that, I'm going to go into AutoCAD. I'm going to press continue here, and I'll get rid of all this too. I'll do that later. Go ahead and just cancel this out so I'll make sure that you can see it. So this will be your basic AutoCAD home screen. I'm going to go back and click home on my ribbon. I'm going to turn off the grid because I don't want to see that. The first thing I want to do is bring up my layer property manager, and then also I want to bring up properties as well. I'm just going to type in properties, and then properties will pull over here. If it doesn't pull over, you'll just simply drag it over to this corner and it'll snap. But these two I think are helpful to have up at all times. Okay, just kind of pull that screen over a little bit more real estate. What I want to do is first create a layer, and I'm going to call this a reference layer as my base, and this is going to be the PDF Basemap. Okay, make sure that I'm on it. Pull over. White's okay for now. I'll show you some more of these fields, and we'll use some of these as we go through. But right now we'll make sure that I'm on that layer. Double click and I'll have a green check. I'm going to type in IM, enter, and that's going to bring up my external references manager. I'm going to click on this icon and that down arrow. I'm going to go to a PDF because it was a PDF that we had created. I'm navigating to the folder which is my downloads. I'm going to the Healing Garden survey and I'm selecting open. I'm just going to have it at a 1:1 scale. I'm just going to drop it in. We're going to scale it anyway. I'm going to get rid of this dialog box, and now you'll see the PDF we have that we need to trace, and we're going to duplicate this. So the first thing we need to do is make sure our units are set correctly. So I'm going to type in units, and I'm going to put us in engineering and adjust the precision to 1/10 and select OK. The next thing I want to do is to scale this drawing. So I'm going to type in SC, enter, select the PDF, enter, 04 base point, R for reference. Now I'm going to use this graphic scale, so I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to grab this point. I know that's supposed to be 0. I'm going to hit F8 to turn on my ortho, which just makes things perfectly straight, or 90 degrees. I'm going to go over to this other edge. I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to type in 50 feet, enter. Zoom extents, Z, enter, E, enter. Now my drawing has been scaled appropriately. So now we're going to start drawing. Now we want to copy all the lines on here, and we'll eventually allocate line thickness and then line type to these so we can actually duplicate and even add labels to this whole piece to duplicate this. The first thing though is just getting our base information down, and we're going to try to do that intelligently by using minimal functions and minimal steps to try to get there. And if you find a more efficient workflow, I would definitely recommend you share it and use it. Okay, so I'm going to create first just a layer just called Everything Lines. And I'm going to make that red so that I can see as I draw. I'm using this because eventually I'm going to define complete surfaces, closed polygons, polylines for every area, so I can do square footage calculations on them later. But for right now, I just want to make sure I'm on this layer. Double click. Then I'm going to just try to get these shapes down. So I'm going to zoom in and try to find the midpoint of that line. I'm going to turn off ortho by hitting F8. Zoom out. I'm just going to stretch this line all the way through. Same thing, find the midpoint there. And that's the first line that we're going to draw. Now I'm going to offset that by hitting O, enter, or return on the spacebar, T, excuse me, turn on the spacebar, and that tells AutoCAD you want to offset the line and you're going to specify the distance. So I'm just going to come here to this other kind of Control Z to go back. Do that again. Come back here to this midpoint. Now I'm going to keep on going down to define all these areas. Trying to be sure to hit that midpoint line. Okay. Looks good so far. And I believe this building is the same thing. I think it's parallel to the street, so let's hope so. I'll try to get as much of this done as possible. So I'm going to zoom in to all these lines that way. Okay. Come up here. That next line. And if it's not, and I guess that one's a little off, we can just delete that and come back to it. We just want to get the lines we can get. To avoid doing what I just did to deleting that, I'm just going to lock that layer that reference PDF is on, so that won't happen again. So I'm just going to delete this and that line. And that one might have been a little off too, so we can just redraw those lines and that's fine. Okay, so that's the first line. So I'm going to continue to draw. Like I said, we're going to draw these other lines in now too. So I'm just using PL for polyline again. Enter. Striking that midpoint here. Zooming, kind of coming over. Midpoint. Oops. Offset through. Clicking that line. Coming up here. It's midpoint here. And hopefully this is aligned now. We'll just go ahead and draw another line here. Midpoint. Come over. Click here. Okay, so we're just building this in layers. I'm going to offset that. That should be perfectly parallel. That was that roof line, I believe. Okay. And now I'm just going to begin to close some of these things. I'm going to hit F3 to turn on my O snap. Click to that corner. If your O snap's not giving that dialog box, you need to right click here and go to settings and then select all. Alright, so that's one line. I'm going to go ahead and connect this other line on this side as well. Okay, great. Now I'm going to do something called a polyline. I'm going to join these. Polyline edit, PE, enter, M, enter for multiple. And I'm just going to select all these. Hit enter, and I'm going to hit J for join, and one is a fuzz distance because I want them to be a closed polyline. So that's closed now. So I can offset that again using the O and T for through. And I'm going to hit that first line. I'm going to hit F3 to make sure my O snap doesn't snap to something I don't want it to. This edge of this piece. So that's the first lip of the building, and this is the second. So there goes the building outline. Okay. Keep on going here. Snap that point there, and I'll snap to this point. Then I'm going to use the extend tool, EX, enter. I'm going to hit this line that I want to extend to, left click, right click, and then click again on the line that you want to extend to that line. And I'll do the same thing on this side as well. Going here, I'm going to extend. I'm going to go all the way to this base. It should be to that second line actually. There we are. I'm going to make sure that I did that here as well. It should be to that second line, not just the roof line. Great, now I can offset this again and through and get this patio line. I'll get the patio line again. And I want to use the extend function and make sure that I extend that and it strikes the building line. Okay. Then I'm going to use my trim tool by hitting TR, enter, selecting the line that I want to trim the other stuff from, and then right clicking and then left clicking the lines I want to delete to trim that up. Excuse me. Okay. At this point, I want to do the same thing over here, so I'm just going to kind of click there to the midpoint again, click to the midpoint here, and turn on F3 again, hit F3, turn my O snaps. I'm looking for the perpendicular. This one's not even perpendicular, so I guess that's unnecessary. So I'll just follow that to the nearest, and follow that line. I'll do the same thing here. Follow that midpoint, and that'll be that. Alright, so we're getting there. This thing is getting built slowly but surely. I'm going to go ahead and put these culvert lines in now. So here, hit that point there, trying again to follow that midpoint. And it looks like it comes and kind of snaps straight down. Okay. And I'll offset that hopefully through. Come here. And then I'm just going to extend using my EX enter. Left, or select the line you want to extend to, right click, and then left click the line you want to extend to that line. So that gives me my culvert line. Now I believe that culvert, yes, this is how it runs up at the top of it. That's fine. So then actually we'll just break that there. We'll do a trim, these two lines, and we'll cut out where that culvert is right there. Just let it end. Do a more even calculation there. On both sides, it'll stop. We'll just say it stops and goes through. Okay, so let's keep on drawing. We'll worry about that a little bit later. Let's keep on drawing. I'm going to go ahead and draw these patio lines in. So click there. I still have my O snap on, trying to keep that center point. And I'm just going to offset again through. Turn off the O snap. And the center point here. Polyline again, turn O snap back on. Try to come to the center here. And looks like the center there. Let's come through right about there actually. I'm going to use my trim again. Yeah, use trim tool constantly. Trim tool here. There you are. Okay, now we have ACs, and these are the AC pads that they're sitting on. So I'm just going to do one side. I'm going to draw one of these, and once I have one drawn, I'll copy it. I'll show you that. We'll offset to this line. Draw this over. Offset that to that, and we'll actually join those using that PE polyline edit multiple polyline function. Enter J, and again now it's one solid polyline connected. So I'm going to offset that and use through, and I'm going to come in here. Of course that's off. So still we'll use a technique because it's already on that line. We know it's parallel, and with this AC unit parallel, I'm going to redraw a line over top of the previous one. I'm going to offset that to here, offset that to here. Alright, and I'm going to delete that previous line. I'm just giving myself a reference. And do the same thing over here to make sure it's completely parallel. I'm going to offset and through. And one more. That midpoint, and then I'm just going to trim these pieces. Continue with the function. Once you do the function once, you hit return again, and it'll return the previous function. So enter. I'm just going through and trimming these. I'm going to combine these as well. And then J for join. 1 is the fuzz distance, and that's 1 unit. So now I'm just going to copy both these by typing in copy. selecting those, grabbing that corner, and just moving that corner here to this midpoint. Excuse me. Okay. So there goes our AC units. That's great. It's getting there. Also, I notice I have a roof line here, so I just want to snap to that and kind of come down there. Cool. Okay. So I have this fence line here. So let me click that. And I'll come up here. And I'll just trace that line as well. And trace this line down. Looks like it ends there. Okay. Then we have a piece of this parking area here. Try to get that center line again. Always going to the center line. There. Coming down. There. Alright. Getting there. Now I'm going to draw these on this driveway. Coming in. Here. And it turns here. Now I want to make this line polyline arc, so I'm going to hit A for arc. And as I do that, you see the arc begins to form. And I'm just going to allow it to connect here to the end of the curb. Okay. Pull that up a little bit. Alright. Now what I want to do is just mirror that, because this should be the exact same on this side, I believe, where this was drawn. So I want to create a reference line to mirror that between. So I want to have this line, and I'm going to call it to this midpoint here. That way, when I do a mirror, type in mirror, select the item you want to mirror, it'll allow me to snap to this midpoint. That's what that triangle represents. And I'm just going to snap perpendicular. Enter. And I'll just move this because it wasn't exactly in the center apparently. So that was weird. And I'll bring this here. Hoping that it snapped to the bottom. And it didn't. So I'm just hitting M for move to kind of shift this up a little bit to get it to line up. And it looks like it's like that. And much better off just redrawing that actually. So let's just redraw that. I'm going to come up here. Click to come down. The same thing then. Easy to do because you come down to the point where a line begins to curve. You just hit A for arc. Come down, and we're going to come into this into the curve here. Okay, so we've defined that. Great. Keep on drawing. Looks like we have parcel lines. I'll go ahead and draw those parcel lines into. Just kind of hit that midpoint. And here. And I see some more parcel lines here. Looks like it's running like that. Another parcel line here. And I'll run that down here. Like that. And I'll run this one here. Trying to hit that midpoint again. This one looks like it runs all the way down. There. Looks like there's another one here. So just select that and then come up. Select there. Another one here. Again, I'm zooming in to get that center point. Just coming back down. This looks like it's striking it here. Is there another one here? Is that one went across that way, and this one's going to split this one here. Okay. Alright. Looks good to me. So now what's missing are our canopy trees and the terrain and these shrubs. Okay, so we need to also, let me just go ahead and close these things out too. Now that I have that in these areas, I'm just going to bring that down. Then I'm just going to trim this too, the TR tool. Trim these sides. Close off those areas. And you'll see why we do that later. Okay, I'm just going to bring this down and follow this tool in. And just run that into this. Then I'm going to trim, select these lines, and just trim that piece off. And I'll do the same where it starts here. Just bring that line. I'm just following the lines that we have that were drawn. Just want to copy this thing as close as possible. Trim. Trimming that. Trimming that. Okay. So now that's closed. Great. And let's go ahead and put this culvert back in actually. Okay. And now we're going to do the topography. Excuse me. So I'm tracing these lines, kind of following them. I'm turning off my Basemap just to make it easier, so my lines aren't jumping. I'm just following these contours on the center. There, 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 there. And all we're doing is just tracing this model. There. Kind of bring it up out there. Okay. So that's one. I'm going to do this again. Bring this down. Bring this over. Just trying to trace those things. Bring this over. Okay. A couple more. So just using polyline coming straight down. Okay. I believe we have one more here. Okay. Right. Bring this down. Now this is striking the building that the contour line is, so I'm going to bring this in. I'm actually going to snap to that building. I'm going to follow it, following that building footprint until it comes out. So it looks like it's coming out there. So I'm just missing that pad, coming around this pad and coming back out. Okay. Just tracing this thing straight out. Control Z if it went bad. I'm gonna turn off the O snap again, make it easier. It's not snapping the things erroneously. Coming up, boom, straight through. Contours are done. Okay. Now I need to put in those light poles as well, so I'm just gonna grab the circle tool and zoom in and click here in the center of it and drag out. I believe I have some other electric poles, so I'm going to do the same thing. I hit enter again because it was my last command. Circle tool, drag out. Circle tool, drag out. Oh, it's a little off. And actually, it looks like it should be the same size, so I'm actually going to copy that to make sure it's the same thing. For now, let me put that there. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead. Now the next step, we have all of our drawing pretty much in besides these trees and the shrubs now. And something a little fishy with the culprit, but we'll fix that here shortly. What we needed to do now, even though we have these lines drawn, is we need to put them on appropriate layers and rename things. Alright? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle these contour lines just to get that done. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, and I'm going to call that terrain as a base layer, or existing first as a prefix, EX dash. I'm going to call this terrain, and I'm going to call this a 1 foot contour. Okay, I'm going to unlock the layer, and I'm going to make it green just so I know that it changes when I do it correctly, right? So I'm going to click all these lines that I made, and I'm going to put it on the terrain layer. They'll turn green. Great. Now I know that this is 805, so I'm going to go ahead and tackle that as well now, changing the elevation. So you're going to do that. You're going to go here and type in the 805 feet. I'm going to go here to 804 and come down and do the same thing for elevation. 804 feet. Going to the 3, same thing, elevation, 803 feet. Coming down to 802, same thing, 802 feet. Okay, cool. So now the next thing that we want to do is identify the parcels. I also didn't put in the boundary line, and we'll do that too. Well, actually, the boundary line is kind of in there. It is in there, so we'll put the boundary line in as well. Well, we'll do that second. Anyway, okay. So we'll do parcels next. So let me just do the new and existing, and we'll put it in parameters, and then we'll do parcel. I'm gonna hit Alt C to make it current, and I'm gonna go ahead and make this yellow, just real quick, so I can see the difference. And I'm gonna turn the green ones off now because I know that that's done. So now my parcel should be yellow. I want to select the parcel lines. These are parcels. And I believe that's a parcel line as well. Okay. And I just want to put it on the parcel layer. Cool. Make sure that makes sense. Great. Now what I also want to go ahead and do is just do my boundaries. So I'm going to create the new layer. I'm going to say EX, and I'm going to say it's a parameter, and I'm going to call it the boundary. I'm going to make this one magenta. Actually, it's going to be on. Cancel. I'm actually going to leave my parcels on because I'm going to trace them. So I'm going to hit polyline because I'm going to link to them basically. F3. grabbing that point, and I'm coming down here, and following that parcel that we've already created, because it's basically just a reiteration of that, and tracing and coming in, hitting those points with my snap-on, and finishing it off, and that's my boundary. Okay, so turn off the boundary, cancel. Let me jump to 0 layer. Let me turn off the boundary and the parcel. We have those done. Now we want to do the fence, so I'm going to say EX, and we'll say the fence is a part of structures, and I'll call that fence, and we'll keep that on in yellow, and that's good. So now I'll click on this layer, which was the fence line, and we'll make sure that it's on fence. It'll turn yellow. That's fine. That's what we want. Okay, so we're kind of quickly getting this piece knocked out. So we got those kind of pieces separated. Now this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. We need to clearly identify the building line first, and then we'll actually turn some of these things into blocks for the shrubs and trees. So first let's identify what the building roof line is. So let's make another layer, and let's go EX, call part of structures, and this is the building roof line, and keep it on yellow. The roof line is actually going to be this outside line here. So I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to put it on the roof line. And now I'm going to turn the roof line off. So what we're left with is kind of these AC pads. And what I'm going to do for those AC pads too, we'll create a simple layer for those. I had that extra one, so I'm going to delete that. Delete that extra one we had drawn as a reference. So I'm actually going to create another layer here and call that existing, and I'm going to call this actually part of utilities, and I'm going to call that the AC unit pads. Turn the layer on so we know it's there. Click on those. Click on those pads and put them on AC unit pads. Great. Turn them off. Don't need them anymore. Okay. Now these AC units, I'm going to go ahead and put those on a layer 2 and get rid of those. So existing utilities, and I'm going to call that the actual AC units. And actually it's okay if they're off, because if they disappear then we'll know they're there. So I'm going to go to the AC units. They should disappear, so that's fine. Okay, what else can we get rid of? This line is supposed to be part of the roof line structure, so that's gone. That'll disappear as well. Okay. If the image begins to look a little pixelated, you can hit REA, enter, to help clear that up. So we need to put in the light pole still, the shrubs, and we need to identify these planter areas. Okay. So the first area I want to identify, and actually I'm going to trim this line here. I'm going to delete this first, and then I'm going to trim between these because this is all part of that parking area here, this main one. Okay. And actually I want to do a layer isolate to help me with this next step. So I'm going to do a layer isolate. And I'm just going to isolate my design lines now. So does this make sense to me? This is not, the sidewalk is cutting through this right now, so I'm going to trim that up. So the sidewalk ends there, as does the curb. Okay, so it looks a little bit better. That's all cleaned up. There's my building line. I need to go back in and put in the windows, and we'll do that here in a second. This culvert piece, I haven't quite decided on. Let's just say that the culvert ends here and disappears beneath the the sidewalk for this instance. Let's just close that off and delete that. Just pretend it just kind of runs into a pipe there. Alright, for this instance, that's fine. Those are going to be the electrical poles. And what I'm going to do for those is actually turn those into blocks. We'll do that kind of last. Right now, we're going to identify some areas using a command called bpoly. So what I want to do now is create another layer and existing, and I'm going to call this hardscapes, and I'm going to call it concrete parking area. I'm going to turn that layer on, and I actually want to make sure I'm on this layer now, so I'll double click on it. I'm using a command called bpoly, and it's going to allow me to pick points. So as I do the poly, I have an island detection on, so I'm going to click this. I'm actually going to click inside this area. You can see it highlighted with these kind of marching ants around it. I want to hit enter, and that's going to give me an area that's closed now, which is great because then it would give me square footages. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for this other parking area. So I'm going to create a layer, EX, and I'm going to do a hardscape, and I'm going to call it gravel parking area. Okay, turn that one off. Turn layer off. I want to be on this layer. Okay, and I want to do the bpoly command again. Same thing. So okay, I'm in this area. Now, if you had a break in a line, if these lines weren't connected, you might have spellouts. Okay, so for instance, if this line was open and not closed, and I tried to do a bpoly, it would spill out. There's no island can be detected. These lines have to be closed. So I'm just gonna go back and leave that there. But that's why things wouldn't be there if they think they should be. Do a RAA. It's fine. So I have those two areas defined. Now I also want to define this culvert area. So I want to create another layer, an existing, and I'm gonna say the hardscape. And I'm gonna call that the culvert. And I want to make sure I'm on that layer. I'm gonna use bpoly. There. And I want to create another layer. This is going to be a planting area, I know. And I'll have to bring back some other line work to help me define the rest of my planting, but I'll do a new layer, an existing, and then plant material. And I'm going to call this is a lawn area. This is actually a planter bed. No, that is a lawn area. This is a lawn area. Okay, I'm actually going to make this green just because it's lawn, so I see it. I want to. Okay, double click there. I'm going to do a bpoly. Same thing, same technique. Come in here, enter. Now I know a lot of this is going to be lawn space, but I need to turn on some of the layers that help me see that. But first, let me go ahead and get this other one. This is a curb right here, and what's between the sidewalk and basically the curb area is going to be another planter area. So I'm going to do a bpoly and select in this space. So it looks like there's a break in the line somewhere, so I just want to make sure that all that's connected. Okay, well, that's one of the things, how these pieces that are breaking it. So let's REA, make sure that's connected. Let's get rid of these first. Let's go ahead and turn these into blocks, and we'll come back to the doing the rest of the lawn areas. We are going to turn these into blocks because it's going to be easier to make them be three-dimensional later on. And actually for this, I guess we'll just pull these up. We can always insert blocks, but let's just make those electric poles for this. Just keep it easy. So existing, and let's go utilities, and let's call that electric pole. And green's fine. Call that electric pole. Call that an electric pole. And the electric pole. Great. Now let me turn the electric poles off. And now I'm still on that plant material layer. And now let me try the B-poly again. And hopefully this will work this time. Sometimes you get these errors, so you have to kind of play with it. So it's telling me something's going on with this line here. So I'm just going to extend to it. I'm going to right click and then extend these lines to it. And hope that that solves the issue. B-poly. Select those. Okay, so that did it. So I had to extend those lines, and sometimes even if a minute break, it won't allow you to do it. So I have my B-poly, and that worked this time. So hopefully it'll be the same thing. I'm returning to do the same B-poly. Apparently there's an issue there, so I'm going to hit EX. It's kind of giving me an indicator, so I'm going to extend that line to it. B-poly. And it's still an issue, so let me extend the bottom line to it as well. Let me come out here and make sure that this is working. So against this line, these other lines should be extended. Great. And B-poly. And come in here. Okay, there we go. So those are some lawn areas. Now I'm going to turn back on, and I guess I'll do the same thing with the light pole. Let's just put that on its own little layer. And this is going to be site furnishings. And this is a light pole. Get it off there so you can see. And select that and then just put that as a light pole. And this might seem a little laborious, but it's necessary to begin to work in 3 dimensions and be able to quantify things that things are on independent layers. So I'm going to turn that off, the light pole. But I want to turn back on now is my my boundaries. So I'm going to turn that boundary back on, and that's going to allow me to identify the lawn space within the boundary here. So I'm still on lawn space, it's still identified. This line weight's just back on my boundary. So I'm going to go to B-poly again and just select in this space, and you see all that has been identified. Enter, and that'll allow me to quickly get square footages for takeoffs. Now I also have a planter area here that I'm going to specify. So I'm going to create a new layer, EX, plant material, and that's going to be planter bed. Okay, actually I'm going to jump to that layer, keep layer on. Let me just organize my name some too. So that's my planter bed. So I'm going to do a B-poly and come into these planter bed areas here. There we go. Okay. And now what I'm left with is identifying these patio areas basically. So I'm going to do the patio areas. So EX. That's going to be a hardscape. And this is going to be a patio. I'm going to double click there. And let me just make that a different color. Let me make that yellow so I can see for now. And B-poly. Come into that area. That's one patio. I'm going to do it again. It's another patio. I'm going to do it again. And that's the last patio. Okay. Now I also need to identify, let me do a lay, or turn off the boundary rather. Now I don't believe I have sidewalks yet, so let me just organize this again and look for my hardscapes. I don't have my sidewalks in, so I'm going to do sidewalks too. EX, hardscapes, and I'm going to do sidewalks. And I'll just Alt-C that or double click that, turn layer on. So my sidewalks, magenta is fine, I'll keep it like that. B-poly. Come in here. That's a sidewalk. Okay, into that one. This one's having some issues. Let's make sure that everything is as it should be. And how about we turn off some of the other things? So let's turn off the gravel. Let's turn off the lawn areas. Okay. Now I should still be on sidewalk after doing that, just to make it easier to see. Still on my sidewalks layer. B poly. Hopefully this will work. So there's still an issue, so we need to look at our baselines, those everything lines, and make sure that's connecting. And it looks like there's a breach or a break or something there. So I just want to extend that. It shouldn't really be an issue. Sometimes these things are a little fussy. I'm just going to extend this line here. Okay. It's a little funky over there. So what I'll do is just kind of pull this back and cheat a little bit and drag this line down. So I have a clean fill. And extend this line to this line. Okay, now hopefully this B poly will work under this condition. That's still not working. Let's turn off the culvert too. I want you to see that sometimes you have to troubleshoot, sometimes these things happen in AutoCAD, so it's something to be aware of. What I want to do is just kind of make sure, select all the lines. Sometimes this happens too, make sure the elevation is 0. And elevation should be 0 for all that, okay? It's giving me that as a point, so let me try this now. Okay, great. So that worked finally. Okay, so we have my sidewalks in. Culvert. Let's turn everything on again. And then let's just turn off. I did that by typing lay on. And now let's just turn off that PDF. See what we have. Okay. So it's looking pretty good right now. Now I need to put in, it looks like the shrubs and the trees. And in this case, we will actually create blocks. So let me put back on my PDF base. And actually, let me just worry about everything else, or just that, and turn everything else off. Okay. Turn layers off. Okay. Don't want to freeze that. Keep that on. So I want to create a new layer. And it should be plant materials, and this will be canopy trees. And I'll go ahead and spell that right. Alright. Alt C. I make these green just to make it green because it's a tree. These are just a simple circle for this. I'm going to take off F3 because I already see it snapping. And I'm going to try to hit a center point of one of these trees that they have here. And just kind of drag it out. Get that right. I'm going to move this over. Oops. Make sure it's not locked. Move it over. Okay. Now what I want to do is make this a block. I'm going to make it a block by clicking on it and hitting B for enter for block. And I'm going to call it existing canopy tree. And what I want to do then, let me edit the block reference. Let me actually Control Z that back to go back. So click on it, B for block. I want to specify the base point, and I want to hit F3, and I want to make sure that base point is going to be that center point. Then I want to call it, the existing canopy tree. Okay. And make sure the object is selected. Okay. Now that's a block. It looks like the same thing. but it's a block, and that'll make a big difference when we start working in 3-dimension. So I'm going to find that midpoint of that. I'm just going to copy this thing over by selecting the copy command, typing in copy. I'm going to take off F3 so I'm not snapping to anything that I don't want to snap to, and I'm just going to go through and drop these trees in. We're getting close to being done now with this. Just got to set line weights and line types. Almost done though. Clicking this, that, there's a tree there as well. That's a tree. Okay. So our canopy trees, great. So now I'm going to do another one, create another layer, and EX, and plant material, and this is going to be shrubs. I'm going to Alt-C to make that current. Same technique. Come here to the center point, kind of dragging out. There. Okay, I'm going to turn that into a block as well. And that's existing shrub. The midpoint's going to be this midpoint. Just hit F3. And that's it. That's going to be copied. I'm going to just copy that and click on that and just find the midpoint of each of these pieces. Okay. There. 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 Alright, I'm going to do a REA just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Let me do a lay ISO just to make sure I got all those shrubs that I needed to get. Click those shrubs, and I'm missing one, so I'm going to copy. And again, I missed that. Just click over there, just drop it in though, not a problem. There, it looks right. Now the last thing I want to do, let me just do a lay on. I believe I have this on a building line. This is everything line, so I still need to create a building layer as well. So even under for my structures, I just have a fence. So I want to create a layer for the building. So existing structures. This is the actual building, and we'll make that green. That's fine for that. That's going to be this line, and it's in here somewhere. Well, let's do a lay ISO to make it easier to see. It's getting a little messy right now. And I'm just going to isolate those everything lines. And now I'm going to put these guys on the building line. That's fine. Okay. I'm going to turn that back on. And I actually want to turn back on the PDF as well, because now I want to make sure that I'm on that layer. Existing hardscapes, or structures rather, the building, PL, and I'm going to go through and make sure I hit these marks now. Okay, I'm offset, same thing we were doing before. There, that's an entrance. And we continue down here, we come here, and here, my perpendicular marker, offset. There, do it again, click here, straight up, offset through, come here, offset, here, offset, here, offset there, again, there, there. Just offsetting the line. Okay. Now let me do a layer isolate. I know that's going to be an entrance to the main point. I'll let the patios be my kind of guide. Layer ISO. Oops. So actually, let me just turn that off. How about we just turn that off? Okay. So I'm just going to trim. I know that's an entrance. Here. It's supposed to be an entrance there. And this is supposed to be an entrance here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is turn off the everything lines. We'll turn everything on, lay on, and turn off the everything lines and turn off the PDF Basemap, and you should see the design. Now all that's left to do is, once we have these pieces and the blocks and so on and so forth, is to just I'm going to make everything white here. It's just to set colors to help us see a little bit better. I was playing around with some of these colors, but it's really easy to manipulate these things. And I'm actually going to even delete this layer. I don't need that anymore, so I'm going to type in my IM. I don't need anything from this piece anymore, so I'm going to detach it. Keep it on if you'd like. I'm clicking on it and hitting detach, and it doesn't want to let go. So let's see if I can. Oh, it's locked. Okay. So now I'll detach. Get rid of that. I don't need this layer now, so I'll delete that layer. And also, I'll just do a lay. I'll double click this and do a layer isolate on that. I don't need any of this line work anymore. And I'll do a lay on, LAYON. I'll make sure I'm on another layer, and I'll just get rid of everything lines as well. Alright. So now I'm just going to make everything white. I'm going to go through and set the colors up and line weights and so on and so forth. And you'll see the model. And organize these lines. Okay, so once you have your PDF traced and all your elements here, and we have them all nicely organized and put into their subcategories, we want to just describe some line color to them and line weight and some different line types to help it read and prepare it for print and get into the layout. So let's do that. Actually, let me go into the culvert hardscape. So I'm going to try to make the lower level, lower elevation elements red. So in this case, I'm just going to go over to all these and just make them red for my hardscapes. Oh, get those two as well. And instantly you see elements of the drawing beginning to change color to help it read. The parameter, I'm going to make the boundary. I'm going to make that the magenta color. Partials, I'm going to make yellow. Canopy tree, planter, but I'm going to make all of the plant material green. Light pole, can make that red. Building I'm going to leave white, and the roof line I'm going to leave white. The fence I'm going to make a yellow. My contours, I want them to be gray. AC unit can be yellow. The AC pad, red. And this is right now, these colors I'm just using to help me see in the drawing different elements. You can use these colors to convey line weight, and in this instance we're not going to do that. We're going to ascribe line weight to these elements now. Before that though, let's go to the line type. Let's modify some of these line types and make sure it's the appropriate scale. I'm going to go ahead now at this point and set the scale, the line type scale on the drawing. I'm going to make that 20. And what that's going to do is allow me to see how this piece would print at a 20 scale. So the different line types. So the line types that I really want to work with or worry about are the parameters. The boundary, the line type should be a phantom 2. If you don't see that, you should just click load and navigate to it. So I'm going to go ahead with the phantom, and same thing for partials as well. Okay, now you see those things change. Now I'm just going to do a layer isolate so you can see this. The line type scale is still barely visible. It's very small, right? I want to make that bigger. So I have my properties up here, and I want to go to the line type scale, and I'm just trying to make that 10. And I like that. That looks good. Another thing that I want to do in the properties is make sure that the line type generation is enabled. In this case, it is. That's good. Lay on. So I'm going to do the same thing for parcels and kind of just isolate them and select them all and make sure the line type scale is 10. Okay. Lay on. Now I also want to make that boundary, the line weight, a little bit thicker. So I'm literally going to change that and make that thicker. I'm going to set that at 1 millimeter. And actually, I'll go ahead and set my line weights now too. I'll do all of my line weights are just establishing thickness, so that the closer you are to the ground plane, the thinner the lines are going to be. So I'm going to make all of my hardscape lines pretty much 0.09. So let me just do that for my hardscape pieces, and I'll make them all 0.09. And my boundary is that 1. Parcels can be 0.15 maybe, and the canopy trees can be a 0.40. Planter bed can be a 0.13. Shrubs, make them a 0.15. Light pole, let's make that 0.18. Building, I'm going to make a 0.25. And the roof line, I'll give you a 0.25 as well. The fence, can make a 0.18. Contours, 0.15. Want to be able to see them. 0.13 for that. AC units, head, 109. It's a hardscape basically. The electric pole, let's put that at a 0.18. Okay, now you can't see those line weights now, but when we go to print, they'll be more evident when we print this piece. Alright, so you want to establish those different line weights. And now I also want to I want to jump into the building structures layer, and I'm going to just isolate that. And I want to add a hatch to that so it reads better. So I'm going to select this, I hit H for hatch, enter. And I'm using the island detection mode, so I'm going into these areas that we've defined and just dropping in the hatch color. So I have windows here, I have the building, windows again, building and the windows and the rest of the frame of the home. Hit enter, okay, turn that on so I have a little more heaviness and I can read that building better. Alright. Now also what I would begin to do now is change the line type. So I know that also I want to change the line type. As we change the line type on the parcels, I also want to change the line type on the contours. So the terrain and 1 foot contours, I'm going to go ahead and modify that, and I'm going to load onto the line type that I need. I'm going to call this a dash. I'm going to load that. Okay. Now you see the dash is very large, so I'm just going to do a layer isolate and select that. Select the contours, go into my properties again. I'm going to make sure the line type generation is enabled, and I'm going to come back up here and change the line type scale maybe to a 1. Oh, not a 1, rather a 0.1. Let's see what that looks like. Let me just turn everything on. Let's see with that better now. And that looks fine to me. I'll leave that at a 0.1. Alright. So now we have something that we can read the drawing more easily. We have some line weights, ascribed to it, and that'll become more evident when we plat, and we can see things clearly, and that's kind of the point of this. And the next part is then to jump into your layout, and I'm just going to modify this by going to the Page Setup Manager, modifying. In this instance, I'm going to select DWG to PDF, and you'll just navigate to that. I will go to 11 by 17 setting. I'm using an ANSI B for this. Make sure it's in the landscape. Now the plat styles, typically you can ascribe colors to plat styles, and in this instance we're not doing that, but we do need to create a new plat style, because if we do not, the drawing will print in color. And actually I'll show you that after the fact. So we'll stop there. We'll pick back up on that a little bit later. I want to select OK from this. Close. You'll see that the page size changes, and I want to go in here and just modify this so I have enough room for a legend to put in here. And actually that page size, let me change. It looks like we have a pretty big margin there. Try to find another one. Expanded. Okay, yeah, it's less of a margin for the expanded. Let me grab that one. Okay. And leaving myself enough room for a title block. Okay. Now I want to scale this thing, so I want to double click in here. And remember, we had our units set, and that should be in engineering, and the precision could just be to the 10th. That's fine. What we want to do now is scale this. Now, the scale, you'll see I've double clicked in my viewport so I can access my model in model space. And come here to my scale icon, you see we have these scales kind of predefined. If I go to 20 scale here, you'll see this thing jumps, and that's wrong. It can't be a 20 scale for this drawing. So we have to create a 20 scale because AutoCAD is recognizing each unit as 12 to equal 1 inch. So we need to multiply 12 by the 20 to get us to 40. So we need to set that and create that in amongst our scales. So we want to come down and we create a custom scale, and I'm going to just add in the name custom 20 scale for presentation. You can call this what you would like. And I'm going to set the paper units to 1, and the drawing units are going to be 240. I'm going to select OK. And that's what I want to have, and that's OK. So then I just want to navigate to that custom scale for presentation, and you'll see that the drawing scales to the appropriate scale. Now I just want to make sure that I have all of my property line in where it needs to be. It's the typography. So it looks good to me. I positioned it. I'm using my middle click wheel. Back to paper space. So I kind of have this set. Now, what I also want to do is create a new layer. Oh, cancel. Not that. I want to create a new layer here in AutoCAD, and I just want to call this title block. Okay, I'm going to double click in that, and I'm going to make that red, and the line weight, or the line type continuous rather. And then I'm in there, so I'm just going to PL, polyline, and draw a line. I'm just going to do a match properties MA to make sure that that viewport is actually on the title block layer. I'm just going to bring this over a little bit to match that. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in, and you'll see that the drawing is not conveying the same line types as it's conveying here in model space. What you need to do is type in paper space line type scale, and I'm just going to set that to 0 and do an REA, and you'll see that the line type scales are conveyed clearly to you. So now that I have the title block on the viewport made, I'm just going to do an M text box and make sure that it's not annotative. If it is annotative, we'll have to change that, but I'm just going to title this thing the Healing Garden design project, and this is going to be the base map. And say this is in Buford Street, Greensboro, North Carolina. And I'm just going to highlight this top piece, and I'm going to make it larger. If you can't adjust the height if it's annotative, so you have to make sure that I'm going to click off of it first. You click on it after you've deselected it, click on it, and make sure that for the text being annotative, no is selected. Make sure this is not annotative. So I'm going to just double click in this and change this to a 0.25 inches for our height, and just adjust that over a little bit so the title stands out. I'm just going to move this down a little bit. After I'm just moving it, just a basic move function. And I'm going to copy this. Copy, right click. I'm just going to drag it over. I'm going to hit F8 for ortho to drag it over. Click. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to say drawn by, in this case, AutoCAD, and dark, and the date is January 22nd, 2014. I'm going to go ahead and make that just a little bit smaller. So let me say that's 0.2 inches. Make it a little bit smaller than that, 0.15 inch. Alright. Just going to bring this over here as well. Line that up. Bring this down. And now I'm just going to create I'm going to go back to my home. I'm going to create a graphic scale bar. So I'm going to draw this down, just hit dimension and say 0.1 inch by 0.5 inches. Oops, do that again. Click on it, hit a point, hit D for dimension, say 0.1 inch by 0.5 inches. Okay, let me just rotate that. You could put it in the other way and just added that, but I'm going to click that point just to rotate it. I'm still on ortho. Okay, so I'm just going to move this over. So I also think it's a 1/2 inch. It's a graphic representation, so I'm just going to move that down. I'm going to make copies of this now. I still have ortho on. I'm just going to come up a little bit. And I'm just going to move this over. Align with that. Come straight up from that. And maybe a little bit more. And I'm just going to draw a line in between that. I'm just going to copy. Actually, I'm going to draw another line that's going up. Further in this case. There. And actually, let me just copy this one over here. Again, I'm just copying to create this graphic scale. Bring this over. Just copy that again. Copy. Grab that one. Come over here. Again. Here. Okay, so you have a nice graphic scale. And then I'm just going to extend this a little bit. I'm going to click on this line and drag that grip up a little bit. And I'm just going to take off ortho. So I make a nice little arrowhead here. I'm using the mirror tool. Use several times. And click there, top. Bring it down. Click. Great. I'm just going to offset. Hit T for through. Come in a little bit. And again, mirror to make sure it's perfect. Mirror. Select this, top of the piece, straight down, enter. Great. And I'm just going to close this off. And use my trim tool, TR, enter, select, right click, trim, trim, trim. And we're going to use the hatch tool again, remember, it's the H. Spacebar, make sure we're on solid, select the object, click, enter. I'm hitting spacebar to return that. And let's go ahead and fill the rest of these in as well. 2, 3, 4, 5, enter. Now I want to add some text fields to that. So I'm just going to do an mtext and drag this down and hit 0 feet. And that's a little bit big, so let me make that the 0.15 inches. Okay, it's better. Bring this over here. And I'm just going to copy this. And what I'm going to do is, though, as I copy it, I'm going to have my ortho on. So let me copy this. Ortho is on, so it stays at 90 degrees directly towards it, so it's straight in the straight line. I'm just going to copy each of these over. These are 1/2 inches, so let me move this north arrow graphic scale up a little bit. The drawing. So the first one's going to be the 5 feet then, or actually this is going to be 10 feet because this is a 20-foot scale. So that's 10, and then 1 inch is 20. And let's do 30, 40, and then the last is going to be 50. Alright, and there's a graphic scale and a north arrow, kind of together in combination. And that is make this little title block a little bit bigger too, a little bit more prominent. I'm just scaling this. I hit SC. I'm selecting the point and dragging out a little bit. Whoops. Do that again. Let me take off my F3. That looks good. Looks better. Okay. Yeah, just make that a little bit larger. Okay. So it looks pretty good to me. Now, before we print, we also need to add labels to this piece. So we have the title block done now. I'm going to actually go back in, to model space. I'm just going to double click. I'm actually going to go paper space again, PS for paper space. I'm going to click on the viewport, right click, and make sure that my display is locked. I'm going to double click in the viewport now. Now when I move in and out, I won't lose my scale. So what I'm going to do is do some annotation. So I want to create another layer, and I'm just going to call it, how about we do existing annotations. Okay, Alt-C that. Red's fine. I'm going to go to my annotate layer, and what I want to do is click on this icon here, and I want to modify this. I want to make sure that the content is going to be annotative. The scale is going to be annotative rather, and 0.18 I think is going to be fine. 0.18 for the text height as well. Okay. Make sure all that is correct. Multilinear text. Justify. So those are the settings that you want to see. And okay. And that's going to be the standard layer. So now I just want to add a leader to this, and we'll see what this size looks like. So the first thing I see is just this patio space. So let me take off ortho and type in patio. Alright, so looks like a decent size. So maybe that's a little bit big, so I can always go to the dim style again and modify that, and maybe make that leader format that size. Maybe it's 0.15, which is instead in later structure content text. Maybe that's 0.15 as well. Inches. Okay. Close, and you'll see that update. It's a little bit tinier just to give myself a little bit more space. Now, if you don't see this thing, if you don't see it displayed properly under your annotation, you need to add your current scale, and you would just add and delete scales here. So you would select that. My custom 20 scale for presentation that we created should be there. If it's not, you would just select add, navigate to it, and select OK, and then your text should pop up at the appropriate size. And the annotation scale just allows this thing to scale with the viewport, so you don't have to keep on changing the size of your text. Alright, so I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to do another one. This is going to be my AC units. Maybe this pulls over actually this way. Okay, do another one. I'm just return. Once you have one command done, you can just hit it again. So I'm going to call this a patio again. It's another patio. Call this the boundary. Continue over here. Just call this existing canopy trees. This is the culvert. These are parcel lines. Just do a return for that parcel line. And call this area here. And actually, we'll just do a regular text for this. So I'm going to do an M text. And select this here. And it should be annotative. In order to make sure, so I'm just going to call this the concrete parking area. Go outside, so that's disappeared. So actually, let me Control Z back out. So let me first go here to specify what this needs to be. And let me change this to make sure it's annotative. And we're going to make this a 0.15 inches. Okay. Set current and close. So now let's try the M text and put this in here. And call that the concrete parking area. Okay. And maybe I modify that. Okay. And then the next area, I'm just going to copy this text over actually. And this area is going to be the gravel parking area. Alright. And I'm going to keep on going, go back to my multi-leader and pull out that construction pole there. So it's actually an electric pole. Electric pole. Let's do another one here. It's an electric pole. Okay. So is there anything else that I'm missing here? We put the sidewalk in. Sidewalk. Alright. It's going to be the light pole. Making sure not forgetting anything. We put the fence in here as well. That is the fence. Just have some tags and labels on things on this Basemap so we know what things are. Make sure I'm getting everything in this. Okay, we'll go ahead and put the planter bed in there as well. I'm going to do a multi-leader. So I'll do this for excuse me, for planter bed. And on this I want to actually add a leader. So that's going to be both of these. Enter. Okay. And then come to the AC units. So that's AC units, both of those. Alright. The boundary parcels have been identified. Patios, channel, concrete parking. Just making sure everything has been identified. The shrubs, pretty self-explanatory. I go ahead and label those as well. The shrubs can be here. Just call them shrubs. It's existing. Just adding all the labels to each of these elements. And then the building, of course, should be, we'll just do a tag for that, do the mtext field here. It's annotative now. So it's going to be the building. Put this right here. Alright. And again, if you can't see your annotation for this, for your text style, you just need to add that that scale, and everything should populate correctly for the scale that we've created. Alright. And one more thing I'm noticing too is for that fence line, we can actually change that line type to something we should have done. It's continuous. We can actually modify that and make that a fence line type. I'm going to load that, and you'll see it changes, and we'll just modify that scale a little bit. Maybe that's a 3. That looks good. Fence is popping up. We have everything identified at this point. So there go our labels. So once we have our labels done, we're just going to go back to paper space. And again, that was on its own annotative layer. I'm going to go ahead and make these a little bit smaller as well. Those weren't annotative. Maybe 0.12. Oops. And I'm going to call that just the 0.12 inches. 0.12 inches. Whoops. Actually, I might better select all these at once. Let me try it this way. And go to your properties. Alright. And go to text height, and we'll just call it 0.12. There we go. So did them all together, much faster. Just make it a little bit smaller, looks a little bit better. Alright, so now we have this everything labeled and everything as we want it to be. Then we'll just go Control P. Now when I do a preview now, when you see this, you'll see a couple of things. One thing, you'll see some line weight conveyed. You see different line thicknesses, but you also see color. And that's not what we want to have happen in the drawing. So I'm going to escape from that, and I'm going to go back to my page setup and right click and do Page Setup Manager, Modify, Pen Settings. I'm going to create my own this time. I'm going to say New, and I'm going to start from scratch. Next, and I'm going to call this just print black. I'm going to say Next. Plot Style Table Editor. I'm in the Form view. I'm going to click here. Scroll down. I'm going to hold Shift, select all these. Now what we're going to tell the computer to do is all these colors, I want them to be black. So I'm going to go to the color and select black, hit Save and Close, and select Finish. Okay, select OK. Close. Now when we print, and again print, and I've already printed this once, but we'll print it again and call it the Healing Garden Basemap, and I do want to overwrite and populate, and now you'll see your nice base map, your line weights conveyed, and everything labeled neatly.